Welcome to the podcast. Here's a sneak peek of what's coming up in today's episode. Did you used to be crap at sales?
Yes.
How crap are we talking?
Awful. Really, really, really bad. If I rewind to like the first sales job, I thought selling was being Del Boy from Only Fools and Horses. I really thought the gift of the gab was selling. But I was really good at booking appointments.
You were the top booker.
I was the top booker.
But nothing ever closed.
Nothing ever closed.
Except maybe one deal.
Apart from one at the back end, maybe. My whole career up until a few years ago was music, but sales pays the bills. And I thought, like, this boy band's going to take off. We're going to be the next big thing. Move over JLS. We're in town. We're taking over. I was like, just do this until it takes on. I remember, like, being on the phone, but then I'm like, my head is somewhere else, and I'm like dreaming about, what would it be like to play the O2 Arena?
You were really honest with me when we sort of spoke about Reed before off camera. You said that you got promoted too quickly, and the only person in Reed, I don't mean to laugh, but the only person in Reed's history to get demoted. What the hell happened there?
A lot of salespeople, like especially when we think about like SDRs, AEs, a lot of them are like 20 to 30, and within 20 to 30 there's that question mark of like, what is my life, what am I doing, where am I going to be? I'm probably like 25, 26. I'm like, this isn't the path that I thought I'd be on. I'm just working like a cruddy sales job. What's the point?
I saw a picture of you and Chris Voss, and I thought that was just some weird post. Well, that's bullshit. There's no way you sat with Chris Voss
For an hour.
He charges like 10 grand an hour.
Be a cheeky northerner, you'll get it for free.
Right, let's hear that story. What happened? Hello and welcome to another episode of the I Used to Be Crap at Sales podcast. I'm Mark Ackers, your host, co-founder and head of sales here at My Sales Coach. And today, in the big orange chair, I'm joined by the director of a sales consultancy, co-director and head of sales at WHAM, that's We Have a Meeting, at the time of recording, 24,000 LinkedIn followers, a man obsessed with cold calling and death, and that's just all LinkedIn says. They've also worked in an Amazon warehouse, on a cruise ship, they sold recruitment services, IVAs, and every type of insurance you can think of, from commercial to life, even Sky remote control insurance. And he spent time trying to make it in a boy band full time. You probably worked out when I said WHAM, we have a meeting. But in case you didn't, today's guest is Jack Frimston. Jack, big welcome to the podcast and the orange chairs.
Thank you for having me. That was lovely what you said. It was like flashing back all those awful memories.
What was the most awful memory that flashed back?
The Amazon warehouse was very, very bad, and that was like during COVID. I thought, you know what, it can't be that bad. I'll just get some extra like pocket money. It was awful.
I feel like I could just talk to you for an hour about how the intricacies of Amazon works, but we won't do that. That wouldn't make for a good podcast.
It's not fair on my brain.
Let's kick it off with a yes/no question. Did you used to be crap at sales?
Yes.
How crap are we talking?
Awful. Really, really, really bad. I'd even go as far to say as like, it's such like an egotistical thing to say like, I'm good at sales now, but obviously like I like to think that I'm all right at selling and I've got a bit of an understanding. But if I rewind to like the first sales job, I thought selling was being Del Boy from Only Fools and Horses. I really thought the gift of the gab was selling, which as you get older in life and wiser, you realise it's the total opposite.
So that's a great place to start. We've got you in the chair. You actually left your house at 6 o'clock this morning to drive up to our studio in Newcastle to talk about being crap in sales. What made you want to do that? I
think it's, I obviously, we employ a lot of young people that are new to sales, and I talk a lot about it on LinkedIn, but I think it's like, it's good to know that like if you're struggling right now, or especially if you're at a point in your life where you're like, what am I doing? Like let's face it, most people that are in sales fall into sales. They have a dream outside of sales. They have something else that they want to pursue. My whole career up until a few years ago was music, but sales pays the bills. So I was like, right, I'll do that 9 to 5, sick. It's 5 o'clock. I'm off. I'm going to go and play guitar somewhere. But it's like, it's knowing that like, other people have walked that. It's okay to feel a little bit lost in the sales world. And actually, if it is something that you get better at, like everybody works in sales. Like even if you don't work in sales, being a better listener, being a better communicator, asking better questions, having a stronger mindset, you're going to be better in whatever walk of life you go into. You're going to be a better parent, you're going to be a better partner, a better friend, all of those things. So even if you work in sales now and you're just thinking like, I'm a bit lost, like I wanted to come on, and like I respect what you guys do, but come and if people are listening to this go, oh God, yeah, I felt like where you were 6 years ago, it might be all right. You might end up wearing all black in Newcastle at 9 a.m.
So let's talk about what you just said, and so much of that resonated, and I've spoke about that before as well. Like if you can pick up those sales skills and fine tune them, you can have better conversations with everybody. But let's talk about what you said about falling into sales. So your first sales job, you put yourself as 16, 17, appointment booking. Tell me how you got that first job, and if it was a conscious choice to take a sales job.
It was, so it's so funny because obviously what I do now is appointment booking, and my first ever sales job was doing the exact same, different thing, but like it's funny how it's come full circle 16 years later. It was year 10, so I was 15, 16 years old, and my best friend Ramin, he was doing work experience where he didn't get paid 2 weeks. I went to a primary school. I was like, well, maybe I'll be a teacher. I don't know what I want to do. So I went to a primary school. He found a publishing company that was in our hometown of Lytham, and he turned up, and it wasn't a publishing company. It was a call centre selling advertising space. So he did that for 2 weeks, and he was good, like on the phones, like he was as good as a 16-year-old can be cold calling. And he said, I've got this like thing. They've said, do you want to stay on for the summer? Another friend went and joined, and then they said, well, they went, who else do you know? And I was knocking about with him, and he was like, why don't you just come in and do this? And I turned up, and I remember like the first day, they give you a piece of paper. We're talking 2007 sometime. Like the computers, like the internet, it wasn't massive. There was yellow pages for Wolverhampton. They were like, right, you're booking meetings in Wolverhampton. Start at the front or the back. There's your script. Good luck. Go and book some appointments for Ben Jones, who's like out in Wolverhampton, and he wants to go and sell some advertising space.
Wow. So was you getting paid for that job?
Yeah, I think looking back, it worked out I was on about £2 an hour.
Commission?
There was commission. So I didn't earn any commission the first year. And I think at the back end of the second year, I had one deal close for like £1,000, and I got like 5% of something. But I was really good at booking appointments. But
you were the top booker.
I was the top booker.
But nothing ever closed?
Nothing ever closed.
Except maybe one deal?
Apart from one at the back end, maybe. Maybe that's like a self-serving memory that I've added in there to make me not feel as bad about being crap at sales. But the first day, everyone was like buzzing about me. They were like, you're going to be so good, you're going to be so good. But like, I thought rapport was the way forward. If you can be their friend, they're going to like buy from you. And I used to say things like, oh, we'll just come down and we'll have we'll bring some jammy Dodgers, we'll just turn up. Like, it was very like pushy, needy, no problem, wasn't solving anything. It was just like, let's just come down and like, oh, Ben's a lovely lad, he just wants to meet you. It was very much, and people would turn up and they'd be like, the decision makers aren't here, I'm just the tea lady.
Well,
like,
she probably needed the jammy Dodgers then.
Yeah, exactly. They never took jammy Dodgers. I always got in trouble for that.
So what made you the top booker then? If you're saying you were crap, what made you the top booker?
Because I was booking appointments with people that weren't decision makers.
Right.
I was just shoving anything through. I'd ring you and you go, like, yeah, maybe like send me an email. Cool, Tuesday at 3? Yeah, whatever. You know, counterfeit no, counterfeit yeses.
Right.
They'd just take that, and I'd be like, sick another one. Obviously, nothing was recorded. What I said happened on the phone was like, and I'd go away and they've got this massive budget for a perimeter board, and I'd paint a picture.
Right. So top booker may be the wrong metric to be measuring, but the one that makes you look the best.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay. And then you had a uni job selling IVAs. So again, cold calling, but this time the public, asking their sort of, £10,000 in debt. Was that a smile and dial job, or was there a strategy there?
That was, I don't even know how they got away with it, but they were like, here's members of the random public. There's no intent. ring people up and say, I'm calling from IVA company. Do you have 10 grand worth of debt? And it was probably one of the lowest points in my life. Like, you imagine calling someone up and saying, are you in debt? If you're not in debt, you're going to be pissed off. If you are in debt, you're probably going to be pissed off.
So was it the lowest point, one of the lowest points in your life or your career? Because that's different.
I just remember, like, it was while I was at university this summer as well. And, like, obviously, like, I was going out and I was still partying and waking up hungover. And I think the hours were something like 10 till 8. And just, like, strolling into this office and, like, all the management were thick. Everybody was an idiot. And then I've just got to, like, call people and be like, do you have debt? And, like, that was, like, I think it was, like, not a low point, but it was, like, so demotivating because, like, yeah. And then when people are like, yeah, you're hearing stories and you're like, oh, your life sounds really bad. And now I've just, like, I'm not even selling to you. I'm just a therapist. And actually, you don't even qualify for an IVA. And they're like, yeah, I've got loads of debt. I've spent it all on, do you know what I mean, TVs from Brightside or whatever.
So I can see why that would be difficult. I suppose I'm trying to ascertain why you took that home. Do you know what I mean? That those back, like, I'm thinking of you at university, you partying, you're studying, you know you're going to go on to better things.
Yeah.
It's obviously a difficult job at the time, but surely clock in, clock out, leave your problems there. But it sounds like you maybe had those problems linger a little bit longer.
Yeah, like I definitely, like, let that, like, resonate. Like you know, like when you look back at jobs, you don't remember, like, the days or, like, the thing. You just remember the feeling.
Yeah.
And I look back at that and, like, luckily I was working with a friend at the time, but then, like, I remember them being off for, like, a week or two. And, like, you're surrounded by, like, I was, like, 20, surrounded by, like, 50-year-old men that were all out in the evenings doing Class A drugs. And you're like, what? This was in Carlisle. Nothing bad against Carlisle, but, like, it just wasn't a fun place to be. It was a very dingy, dark call centre where you're just, like, doing the same thing, and it's like you're not allowed to even, like, go for a toilet break or whatever. Like, it's just very much like back on the phones, come on, dial, you need to hit your KPIs, you need to do 100, you need to, you're just like, oh, but I need the money.
Yeah. Carlisle, a good night out?
It was a good night out.
Was or still is?
I've not had a night out in Carlisle in about a decade.
Right.
So who knows now? I'm sure 2024 it's banging.
What did you learn from those two jobs, like appointment setting and cold calling the public?
I think anybody that cold calls, because I did it from such a young age, like 16, 17, and then you're going on to, like, 20, like, it just becomes a bit of the norm. Whereas I think, like, when you do it when you're older, it doesn't feel like I always talk about, like, the fear of rejection. I'm like, I've done it. I've had, like, when we call for WHAM now, like, it's very rare. Like, I can't remember the last time someone was, like, really awful to me. Like it, because it doesn't happen. Like, you get the odd person that's a bit shirty, but, like, they're not, like, awful. Whereas back then, like, I probably blocked out all the memories. I can't remember the specifics of it, but people were, like, because they're members of the public as well. You shouldn't be calling it, like, shouting at you, and then you just, like, it startled you, and, like, you're a young man, and you're like, oh, is this what happens as you get older? Yeah. People, like, torture you like this.
Obviously, calling the public and calling businesses are different, but equally, you'd have got much. But, like, you are well known now for cold calling. A lot of people look up to you and follow your content and cold calling. So, is there an element of, though, when you're calling today, the reason people are more receptive is just simply because you're better at it? Like, can you think back to what your calls may have sounded like then versus now? Yeah,
it would have been all me. How do I get everything about our proposition over to them? Because, like, you don't until that phrase of, like, people don't care about you, your problem, your website, what your solution, whatever. Like, until I knew that, it was very much like, but how are they going to know that we're, like, an award-winning business? How do they know that we've saved millions, thousands in IVAs? They're not going to know that. Whereas they don't care. So how do I make it? So I was running in there, yapping at people, and then all of a sudden you're a bit like, people are like, I'm bored of this. It's some Mockney guy's just cold called me and I don't want to talk to him.
I've never done this, you know. I've sat down with reps one-to-one for about 10 years. And so say you've got someone that isn't hitting their number I would always be like, so how come you're not hitting your number? What have you been doing? Let's look at your activity. And like Steve was like, no, I'd do a discovery call on them. How much do you think that's cost you in commission? And he was like, I was just like, why the fuck have I never thought to do that? And he's like, no, I'd say to them, so you've not hit your number. How long you not been hitting your number for? What's the reason for that? How long is that? How much do you reckon that's cost you in commission? Talk to me about your long-term goals. How much further away are you?
Yeah, big gap.
I just thought like, it's so fucking obvious. I've never put a rep and a one-to-one for a pain funnel against their own goals.
I like that.
Really obvious, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm going to use that.
So how did you make that switch then? Like from having the calls all about they need to hear about our award-winning services, they need to hear about how good we are, to it's not about me, it's about them. How did you learn to make that switch?
So that switch didn't happen until probably like 8-9 years later. Like I think I got more awareness, but like I think what happened is that as I progressed through my sales jobs, and I've had like various different sales jobs, they give you like the bit, and then they give you like, you get better training. So when I worked at, sorry,
it's all right. We can keep rolling.
So when I worked at read.co.uk, they like gave me Sandler training. So Sandler training was like really understanding like the pain, but I still didn't like get it. But I knew the questions to ask. I knew the path to go down. Like when I was working in like commercial insurance, the first thing that you had to ask was what are their needs, right? Which makes sense. So I was asking the questions, but then it's like it's only been later on in life that I've really understood the psychology. And I think it's like you can train somebody to have here are the things to do, but if somebody doesn't understand why they're doing it, they can like learn the move, but they can't like win the fight, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So just help do some maths for me here. How long have you been in sales? About 16 years?
16 years.
And you just said there you didn't make that switch for 8 or 9 years. You were already like a year into your career, so to speak.
Yeah.
So really what we're saying here is the first 10 of your 16 years, you weren't doing the right thing.
1,000,000%. It's the same year 10 times over. So let's think. So I moved to London in when I was 21, and then I moved out of London for when I was like 27. So that's 6 years. Within those 6 years, I had 4 jobs, 4 different sales jobs that I wasn't very good at, and I probably got better at. But definitely by the point I was in the last job, I was better. But thinking from me now to me then, I sometimes wish that me now could go back and do those like cruddy sales jobs, because I'm like, I would have done it so much differently. I would have been so much better. And also thinking about like mindset. Like sales for me is an umbrella of 2 things, communication and mindset. So the communication wasn't there. I was still Del Boy, but as the years progressed, maybe a watered down version, still trying to build rapport. Somebody on the other end of the phone says, yeah, I'm doing this because I've got 3 kids. Oh, I've got 3 kids. And it was like all fake, like sunshiny rapport, the stuff that I now take the mickey out of on LinkedIn. But it was only like later on where I like really started to like understand and become like a good seller. But the mindset wasn't there either. I wasn't, when you think about what a high performer is, nowhere near. I wasn't putting the reps in outside of work. It was very much 9 to 5, turn up, do the bit, don't think about it. Whereas what I learned in like the last 3-4 years, if you like, it doesn't take a lot. So like, if you put a few hours in before work, like you commute, you put that commute time in, you start listening to podcasts, you start like researching, you put the reps in while you're in work, and then you put a bit of work outside of work. It doesn't take long until like you kind of like overtake other people that aren't putting the work in. Like to be in the top 5% of sellers, you got to think that 95% of people probably aren't doing anything. They've just got the experience, they're complacent, they're doing the same thing they've always done. Whereas it's like if you put in a little bit of effort, the same with anything. Like you think about human beings, like hardly anybody can speak languages, but like if you put in a little bit of effort, then you'll be in the top 5% of bilingual human beings. Maybe. Don't check the maths on that one. You get the point.
Can we just get a fact check on that, please?
Yeah.
So here's what's really interesting. You said you wished if you now could go back. Effectively, what you're saying is when you started off in those jobs, if you had access to someone that had already done it, had walked the path that you want to walk, you'd have done things differently. That Jack would have existed, right? That you would have been able to find and work with someone that had already done that. If you could go back to that person, effectively give you, when you're sort of starting out in sales, access to someone that's walked the path that you're about to walk, had success in those roles, that it would have fundamentally changed what you did and the results that you had. Obviously, like, those people exist. Like, right now, you're on a path. What do you think the impact would have been if you could have worked with a coach at that early age that could have helped you?
I think the majority of sales jobs are, here's your product knowledge, get in and like start selling. There's like, they say training, but there's actually not sales training. I think what I definitely would have needed is someone to like unlock my motivation. Okay, so my motivation was all about everything that was happening outside of work. Now, I've always had the mindset of even if I'm not pursuing a career in insurance, right? I'm there. My mindset and my work ethic was always, while I'm here, I'm going to work as hard as I can. I'm going to put 100% in anyway. But like, I wasn't trying to get better. It was more like, like being busy isn't necessarily being productive. Like, working hard isn't like necessarily working smart. So I think I needed somebody to maybe like show me the way of like, okay, let's sit down with you. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to like unlock? Well, I'm trying to do this outside and I'm trying to get to this. Okay. And what from within work and your career, what would that, how could we get you there by doing this? Do you know what I mean? So if it's like if I had more money, I'd be able to do this, this and this. I think it's like unpicking those different motivation points, and that's kind of what I lacked. And I think it's so, hindsight is beautiful, and like I'm grateful for where I'm at now, but like you just kind of wish somebody had like switched on the lights and be like, just so you know, you're doing this wrong, X, Y, and Z. If you just make a few tweaks, it's not even like massive tweaks, but a few tweaks, then you move completely in a different direction.
How much of that was down to you though, not being, unless, remember you were sort of 20 at the time-ish, maybe a bit younger, maybe a bit older, but how much is down to you just weren't mature enough at that point to realise that, or that is a reflection of the environment that you're in? The way you've described those jobs sound like, little grubby offices where that's not going to be there to inspire and motivate you. So how much of that is down to you as an individual not being open-minded, mature, whatever you want to call it, versus you're just in the wrong place?
I think, yeah, 1 million. I think a lot of them, not all of the jobs that I worked in, but a lot of them were like the wrong place, that don't inspire, they don't motivate you. And I think like that's like a lot of salespeople, like especially when we think about like SDRs, AEs, a lot of them are like 20 to 30. And within 20 to 30, there's that question mark of like, what is my life? What am I doing? Where am I going to be? I'm probably like 25, 26. I'm like, this isn't the path that I thought I'd be on. I'm just working like a cruddy sales job. What's the point? Whereas it's like, you can twist that completely, and you can be like, imagine if I got really good at this. Imagine what person I could be. Imagine how it would change my life. And like now I'm lucky to be in that position where I'm like, I'm so grateful for all of that. But at the time, you don't realise.
And obviously you then find yourself now in a position where you can make that change. We'll come to what you're doing now later. I found it really interesting. We don't need to dwell too much, but you moved to London then, and you had a 2-hour commute. Why don't you just move closer to your job or get a job closer to where you are? London's massive, mate.
London is massive, and a 21-year-old is stupid. That's all I can say. But like, so, and the annoying thing was, it was actually quite close in like location wise. But what I had to do is I had to get the tube from where I lived into the city centre, and then I had to get another tube back out to the city centre. So it was like out of there and then end up there. So it was like 2-hour commute every single day, starting work at 9 o'clock. You're leaving at 7, you're getting home at 7. It was like, those are the jobs. Like I talked about the IVA place, this one as well. I was only there for 5 months, but that makes my belly, like, it gives me that like feeling like, oh, did I really do that? And then I got a little bit smarter and went, oh, imagine if I didn't have a job here and I could just do an hour commute in London like everybody else.
Yeah. And then that's Reed, isn't it? That's where you went next.
Yeah, I went to Reed next. So like I interviewed for 2 companies. I got a job offer at reed.co.uk and I got offered a job in recruitment. The recruitment job paid £2,000 more. So the recruitment job was 22 and Reed was 20k. And I was like, I'm going to take the recruitment job for 2k more. And my family were like, whoa, slow down, cowboy. They were like, right, this is like a little unknown recruitment job. Like the commute's still a little bit far. They're like, this is Reed, massive company, office in Covent Garden. Look at what they do for all their staff on a monthly basis. Like, just don't be hasty just for a couple of grand more. And I was like, I was still young. I was like, yeah, whatever then, I'll take that one. Best decision. The recruitment job I probably would have lasted 3 months and I would have hated it. Reed was one of the best places to work. Like, I still have very fond memories of them, and they were a company that did give a shit about their people and did care about getting them better at sales. Was I self-aware enough to take it all on board? Probably not. And I thought that I knew better, but I think that's ego of a 22-year-old.
And you were really honest with me when we sort of spoke about Reed before off camera. You said that you got promoted too quickly, and the only person in Reed, I don't mean to laugh, but the only person in Reed's history to get demoted. What the hell happened there?
I was like, very confident, went in, and like I think like most, they probably hired loads and loads of young people, and I saw like every month there was a new influx, and like I was on the phone, I was doing really, really well, and they were like, this kid is good. This kid's doing something. And I was like, I was selling lower value stuff, £300-400. Like, imagine if we put him on the 3-4K stuff. They're like, he's really good. So it's like moved desk. So that was there. And then I moved 2 desks to the higher value. And I've only been there a few months. And I was like, hi guys, yeah, like all confident. And then I think a month in, nothing had happened. They were like, I think we're being too hasty. We're going to move you back down. And like I was like, I'm the only person in history to be demotivated.
Demotivated and demoted.
Oh, demoted and demotivated. That's the one. Yeah.
How did you deal with that? Because there is that. Oh, sorry guys. Let me just pick up my pen and pencil and phone and move 2 desks down or whatever it was. Like, how did you not let that beat you and where you think I just need to leave? Because I can imagine making that move and everyone's seeing it as well. Must have been, like you say, demotivating. But how did you cope with it?
You know what? I think it was one of those, like, I just took it on the chin. Like I really like, and that's kind of been like a bit of a mindset thing through life. Like, oh, it'll be what it is. I was like, cool, what's in my control at this point? Probably subconsciously more so, but like, cool, I've been demoted. Let's have a laugh about it. Everyone's going to take the piss anyway, so I might as well join in. And then just like focus on getting good back where I was. And then I was only there for another year, and then classic young salesperson, I moved to another company with bigger dreams and hopes of bigger commission, and that didn't come to fruition.
Well, before that, this is, we don't need again to dwell on this, but I need to hear more. This was the boy band phase.
The boy band phase.
So at this point, had you decided sales was the career for you, but you need to go and do this, or were you still unsure if you wanted to be in sales long term?
I knew that I was, I knew that I was never going to be in sales full time. I was like, sales is a stopgap, 1,000,000%. 32-year-old sat here now, sales full time. I'm going to be doing sales for the rest of my life now. Like, I know that. At the time, I was like, it's a stopgap. I was like, I'm in a boy band. I say boy band. We thought we were a cool indie band. We weren't. And I thought, like, this boy band's going to take off. We're going to be the next big thing. Move over JLS. We're in town. We're taking over. I was like, just do this until it takes on. Like, we were so confident that it was going to happen. I was like, I'll just keep doing this until we get there.
Again, though, is that not a reflection of the reason why you probably didn't have the mindset to be successful in sales then?
Yeah, 1,000,000%. Like, I remember, like, being on the phone, but then I'm like, my head is somewhere else. And I'm like dreaming about, what would it be like to play the O2 Arena? whereas I'm mid-conversation. How can you communicate effectively and be a good listener and ask thought-provoking questions if you're not even in the conversation? If you're just going through the motions, it's like, I say to my team, like, you can't, like, we all do it, we all fall into autopilot, but, like, you can't. Like, if you really want to be present, you have to be there in that moment and, like, genuinely care about what you're listening to, genuinely care about those problems that you're listening to, and think, how can I ask a good question next? Whereas if you're like, right, okay, sorry, you said that, right, what's next in my script? Cool. I was just thinking about another song that I could write. Like, I wasn't present. My head was elsewhere.
So, again, totally understand exactly what you're saying there. And if you've got bigger dreams, you've got to pursue them. And you did that. The boy band phase, as you called it, that's not my words there. But what was the name of the band?
Oh, I don't want... The Tailor-Made.
The Tailor-Made is in like a tailor-made suit?
Yeah, not like golf, but like the tailor-made suit.
So that was the band, The Tailor-Made?
The Tailor-Made.
Kind of music, indie?
Kind of. A bit Scouting for Girls.
I love Scouting for Girls.
A bit like... If you asked me, were you good? I'd say no. Did we do all right? Yeah. We got lucky. We won some decent competitions. We went on tour. We went on tour with like Tom Jones, the Beach Boys. I got to...
Sorry, Tom Jones as in like the Welsh Tom Jones.
Yeah, not just a bloke that lives in Newcastle.
Like
the Tom Jones.
The Tom Jones.
Yeah, we got to a point where like we were playing to people of like 15,000. Like
no.
I don't want to clang. It feels all like icky, but like.
You've not told me that. You've literally called it a boy band phase.
Yeah, but it's a podcast about sales, isn't it? It's not about like the
fucking hell, Jack. Literally, you've got boy band phase. And I'm hearing here Tom Jones and 15,000 people.
We did all right. Like we did quite a lot of big. So our manager that signed us, he was part of like Live Nation. So like he'd put us on all the tours. So we like did George Ezra. We went on tour with Madness, which was wicked. I'm just clanging them all over the stage.
Can we pick these names up, please?
There's more. I won't. We'll stop there.
No, I want to hear more.
You'll like this one. We were crowned the best buskers in London by Boris Johnson.
This is a wind up, isn't it?
I swear down.
What are you doing in sales? Why aren't you?
No, because so then like one day happened. So I was like working in my sales job at the time. I was like 26.
Are you on Spotify?
Yeah, but we're not. We aren't. Mark Ackers, we are not going to play.
I think we need to play a bit.
No, we're not going to play.
The Tailor-Made.
Oh, this is awful. Where has this gone?
Sorry. Right, I've got all your songs here. The Tailor-Made. It's official. We've got that little blue tick as well.
Yeah, we've got a blue tick.
So what's the best song?
None of them are good.
Oh, what's the best one though?
I don't know.
Well, Living, Loving.
No, that's awful.
Rum and Red Bull. That sounds horrible. Rum and Red Bull.
Yeah.
Take Me.
No, that's bad.
Mr. Perfect.
Really bad.
Is that about you?
Yeah.
Spinning Around.
That's awful.
Right, come on, pick a song or I'm going to pick one.
Cougar in the Corner.
Cougar in the Corner. Why can I not find... got it.
Oh, how was this up?
Hang on, skip. Mate, that sounds... I'm going to give this a... Yeah, it is.
No.
How do I, follow? There we are. I don't think I follow anyone on Spotify.
I can promise you there's no new music coming anytime soon.
So why didn't that work out then?
So I was working in an insurance company, selling insurance, and the majority of people that worked there were young, artsy professionals, like singers, dancers. 10 people got hired every month, 9 people got sacked every month. So like one would last. So all 3 of the lads in the boy band started the job. One of the lads got sacked for hanging up on people. One of the lads got moved to recruitment, and 3 years in, I was the only one that survived in sales. But we were just doing that, and then we'd say, right, we need a week off. We're going on tour. We're doing this. We're doing that, and we got a call one day, and it was our agent, it was our manager, and our tour promoter, and they just said, you've not sold enough tickets. I think we'd sold 100 in London, 50 in Manchester, and 8 in Carlisle. We knew no one in Carlisle. So that was enough.
You went to uni there?
Yeah, I know, but no one was there
Carlisle's
anymore.
very own.
No one stays in Carlisle.
Right.
So they pulled the tour. the tour got pulled, and then we were just like, what do you want to do now? And I was like, lads, I'm done. I'm so over this. I was like, I want to go travelling. I want to enjoy myself. And that's how I ended up on the cruise ships.
Right.
So it kind of progresses. So it was like sales, doing music, trying to make a dream of that. That didn't work out. But I think it's like, it's an important lesson as well. Like, I'm big on like chasing your dreams, but it's also important to know when to say, that's not my dream anymore. Like, it would have really, like, I mean, I wouldn't have known because I would have been doing it, but to be like 32, like still living at my auntie's house, like trying to make it in a boy band, I think it's like, there's points where your priorities change and your fundamentals. It's like, what do I, like everything I do now with the business and like the kind of the mission I'm on now, I get fulfilled in like, it's the same feeling as like performing to a crowd, if that makes sense. Like you're chasing the same kind of endorphin rush of like when you close a big deal or like you have a great client succeed and things like that.
Look, I love sales, right? Really passionate about it. I don't feel like I've ever compared to like sitting backstage with Tom Jones and 15,000 people singing my songs, but okay, whatever sort of helps you there. So yeah, it felt like when I was going through sort of your background, sort of preparing for the podcast, I felt like this was the point where I was like, it feels like he lost his way here. Right, we went from, and you literally called it a boy band phase. I've never felt so lied to, but you literally said like, look, I had all these sales jobs, boy band phase. Then it was like you say, cruise ships, Amazon warehouse. It felt like you lost your way, and I was kind of wondering, why weren't you in sales at that point?
Yeah, so like I just the music had ended, and I was young enough to say, I just want to like get away. I want to start again, do something. What can I do? I thought, well, you can have a roof over your head, go traveling, work on cruise ships. So I did that for a couple of years, and I enjoyed it, and it was great. And I think like the communication skills that I had definitely helped me. Like on the first cruise ship, I was like a bingo host. The second cruise ship, I was in like a rock band performing on the stage, and then like the pandemic hit, and like I was 28, and I'm at like a real, what do you do with your life? And then I went back to England like during the pandemic, and then I was like, well, I need some pocket money, I'm gonna start working in Amazon. And then I was like, I need to do something. My mate was like, I've got a spare room in Manchester, why don't you move to Manchester and just get a sales job? I was like, sound like I know them, like bread and butter, I'm always gonna get a sales job. I just feel like, I don't know if you've been there, but like you can always find something, and you're like, I'll always have enough money because it's what I know. My CV's all right. Even I've got the scattiest CV. Like I don't think I'd hire me if I interviewed for my job, like a job at my company now. I think I'd look at my CV and go, this person is too scatty. I don't know. Like it fills me with fear. All the things. But I landed another sales job, and that was the point where it was like, this is it. There's no boy band to fall back on. There's no cruise ship. I'm not going back there. What happens now? So I'm like 28. I was like, what is this path? Like I'm approaching 30. You think like, this is a point where I should have my shit figured out. I don't have anything figured out. I don't know what I'm doing. And I was like, this is like the time to make change. And I started thinking, and the change didn't come from, I'm going to get good at sales. The change started coming from like self-development of like, I'm reading the business books, you know, like all like the David Goggins stuff, the Jesse, it's that was the stuff. And I was like, right, what if I run a marathon? That would be good for your mindset. Right. Okay. I did that. And then like I stayed in a monastery, and like I started like learning about like mindset and all of those things. And then Zach, who's been my best friend of 16, 17 years, we went to high school together. He was like, I'm in the same point. He was like, I've been doing this sales job. My company are just like, don't respect me. I've got a baby on the way. He was like, he texted me, he was like, I've had a brainwave. I was like, what? He was like, I'm going to start my own business. And then that's where the cogs of like, I'm at a point in my life where I don't know what I'm doing. I don't really know where I should go. He's on the same, and he's like, I'm going to make a leap. I'm going to do something. And I was like, we were having conversations on a regular basis, and I was like, there's enough room on that piece of wood for two. And he was like, why don't you join me? and then that's when the next chapter of life, I guess, after the cruise ship and the pandemic starts.
When you say that piece of wood, are you referring to Jack and Rose?
Oh, I was. I'm glad that you picked up on the Titanic.
Well,
reference.
just cruise ships, Titanic.
Yeah.
So, before we open up that next chapter, because obviously that's going to be a really interesting part of this podcast, let's have some funny stories, right? You've obviously worked in a number of different sort of, whether you want to use the word dodgy or not, jobs. And what is when you look back at it now, the funniest thing or funny story from selling that springs to mind?
The first company, when I first moved to London, like I remember interviewing, and like I'm not saying like I was good at sales, I was crap at sales, but I was switched on, and I think like it was a little area in Edgware, which is like a shithole in London on the corner. Anyone watching this in Edgware, sorry, but like I think I interviewed, and like I was like around people that were also interviewing. I was like, I'm a bit different here. Like I'm a bit more like switched on. Everyone felt a bit slower, and I think like the managers, I think they couldn't believe their luck. They were like, how has this guy like got this, like how's he ended up here? And like they left there, said, Jack, can you stay behind? They were like, we want to offer you a job on the spot right now. Will you take it? I was like, yeah, all right. First interview in London, like I just arrived, bags packed, ready to be in a boy band, and they were like, we'll give you a job, you can start tomorrow. I was like, cool, I need a job. And it was something, the wage was awful, it might have been like 16 grand a year, and I was spending half of that on the big commute. So that was going on, and that was selling insurance for Sky. Now, I don't know if you realise, but if you've got Sky and you box breaks, like you just ring Sky and they'll look after it. But they had all these people's details, and we were like ringing them up, and it was a dodgy, manipulating company, and they were like ringing old people, and I was like, I don't feel like ethical doing this. Like, you need to insure your Sky remote. It's the same price as a Domino's a month, like selling that. One of the guys, the manager, like we all got called into a boardroom meeting, and I'd roped in the other two lads from the boy band at this time. So where I went, they followed. And they were like, someone's been stealing bank details. And I was like, it's not me. And I'm looking at my lads, and I'm like, it's not them. And then they called the manager out, and they were like, right, he's gone. Right, moving forward. They were like, Jack, can you stay behind? I've been there about 2-3 months. They were like, you're the new manager, assistant manager to another guy.
Assistant to the manager.
Yeah. Like 21. And I was like, oh, I'm now the sales manager. Like, what?
Is this going to turn into a funny story? Because this is so far, like, I'm a bit depressed here.
Well, no, it's like, I don't think like, yeah, it's like depressing, but also like, I became the assistant sales manager, and then 2 weeks later I got sacked. So that's probably the punchline.
Okay, there's the punchline. So what happened? Why did you get sacked?
Somebody turned up for a job interview. All the owners of the company were on lunch, and I was like, I'm the assistant manager, I'll just do it. And then they were like, you shouldn't have like gone above your pay grade. I was like, yeah, but I'm the assistant manager. You guys said that I was. And they were like, yeah, you've gone above your pay grade, you're sacked. I was like, right, cool. And then I went and found read.co.uk, the UK's #1 job site, thankfully.
You're on the coin for that.
Yeah, every time I say it. So funny, no, but like dodgy, and just like how things happen. But what I find funny is, as a sales manager, the first thing I did was go to Google Images, type in motivational posters, print them all off on crappy 8.4, and stick all these things up on the wall that say, you can do this, you got this. And I think back and I go, how pathetic.
So, okay, there was the punchline there. What about like a funny story of a prospect? Maybe the rudest call you've ever had, or the funniest sort of experience you've had in sales with a customer or prospect?
I remember cold calling somebody to sell them advertising space, and it was a stables, and this woman was crying down the phone and said, nobody cares about the horses. Why would you want to advertise? Nobody, and like swearing, nobody cares about the horses. And I thought that was quite a unique take. Surely some people do care about the horses.
I'm not getting the funny stories, but I'm getting stories.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. So let's move on then. Your colleague Zach, because I come on your podcast
a
couple of years ago, didn't I? I remember that. He says, I'm going to start my own business. That feels like a pretty precarious time for him to do that if he's got a baby on the way. I can imagine those conversations didn't go down too well at home. But you've decided, I'm going to join the business. Talk to us about that. Like, obviously, people who follow you will know about WHAM, but what was the big vision here?
So Zach was working in like a 360 job where like he was the guy that went in, opened the doors via cold calling, and then he would sit the meetings, and then he would close the deals, and then he'd pass it on like, okay, whatever it is. He had 1 month's rent, and his wife was very supportive. She was like, you do it, you do you, like, because it's one of those. I think when you go into it with the mentality of this has got to work, like there's no other. Like when we asked some of our team, like, oh, why did you hit commission this month? Some of them were like, I had to. I've got other priorities outside of work that I need to make sure that I'm hitting. So like, it's like one of those that you've got to do it. So Zach jumped in, and I think he was ringing a few people, and they were saying to him, I don't need what you're selling me, but what I do need is like, I need someone like you to open the doors for me. Do you want a job? So every third or fourth call, people were saying like, I need someone like you to like, and obviously we're big into like Sandler and Benjamin Dennehy's approach and things like that. And I think like he'd been listening to Benjamin Dennehy, Mike Winnet podcast, and he was like, one of the things that they said between them is, if you are working from home during a pandemic and you're cold calling and you've not got someone leaning over your shoulder, you should be doing this for yourself. And I think one of Benjamin Dennehy's first job was appointment setter for a massive marketing company. And Zach was like, I'm just going to do that. And like there was some like doubt around it. And then I think on his 9th call, someone was like, if you can do that for me, then yeah, we'll go. And that was his first client. And then he got busy, and we were talking once or twice a week anyway, as mates do. He's filling me in on his. I'm telling him about how crap this is, but what I'm doing in my life. And he was like, there is an opportunity here. And then that's where it was like, right, I'm going to go off. I'm going to start listening to the podcast. I'm going to start reading. I'm going to like really put some time in. And then it got to a point that I think that was like in the summer. And then it got to the point by the January, I was like, right, I'm all in. I'm joining, let's go. And
this feels like the pivotal moment where, like you say, it was self-development, it was realising sales as a skill, one that you can properly learn. Just before like you started doing that, did you think at the time you were good at sales?
Yeah, I thought I was good at sales, but I was crap at sales.
What's the difference there? Like, how good did you think you were versus how crap were you now when you look back? So let's do it on a scale of 1 to 10. How good did you think you were?
I thought I was a 10.
Wow, so you thought you were brilliant then?
Yeah.
And now when you look back,
probably a 3.
Right.
But then if you asked me to rank myself now, I'd probably say I was going to be really go yeah, definitely a 12. No, I'd probably say a 7, or like because I think like if you're self-aware enough to know, like there's always room to learn. Like do I do things perfectly? No, like you're always looking for like that extra bit. Like, and I think like with self-awareness when it comes, it's like, I think anyone that sits there and says I'm a 10 at sales is somebody that is probably oblivious to the truth. It's like there's always room to learn and room to improve and get better. Could I have asked a better question? Could I have listened more? Could I have been more in the present moment? So like definitely like I'm still learning, and like I'm still on that road to development. And I think fast forward 30 years, I'll still be there.
Anyone that sort of worked closely with me will know that I have to ask this question. Like, just when I hear people say 7 out of 10, it's just I've got to ask it. When people say 7 out of 10, they normally mean 6 or 8. You're saying you're a 7 out of 10. What do you really mean?
I reckon 7. 7's a number for a reason, isn't it?
I know, but I just feel like that's the casual. Like most people, when they score a film, if it's all right, would give it a 7 out of 10. It's the go-to.
Yeah, I don't think I'd say a 6, because that means I'm probably just... Yeah, I don't think I'd say a 6, but then I also think like 8 is virgin. It depends if you want like a self-aware answer or an egotistical answer.
Well, an egotistical answer when you said 10 out of 10.
Yeah,
We've
exactly.
had that.
The lack of self-awareness. 7.5.
So we're closer to an 8. Because when you get to 0.5, you round up in maths.
Yeah, I didn't listen in maths.
So I heard it, you're an 8 out of 10. Do you believe now in your role you are aware of the responsibility you have for the people, in sense of you didn't have that support, you didn't have that workplace. You didn't have that mentorship. You are now responsible for, is it 15 people in total? Like, how do you take what the environments you've been and ensure that you're not repeating history and you're giving them what you needed?
It's a great question. I think I've had a lot of bad bosses and a lot of twat bosses, and I like to think that may be corrected. Like, and definitely with people that have come and gone throughout the company. Maybe I've not always been 100%, but we're all human, and I think we can acknowledge that. But I like to think like that. It's such a wanky phrase, but the door's always open. But like genuinely, like we've got two new people that are with us. I sit down with one of them twice a week for half an hour blocks. Like it's like that coaching element. Every morning within the company, like we'll do something when it's like refining a skill, a call listening, a role play, whatever it is. And then throughout the day, it's just like I really think it's like keeping on top of people and being there, and then learning different people's styles. Like, what do you need? Do you need a bit of directness? Do you need it to be kind of a bit of a shit sandwich? Do you need it to be like softly? But I think that's another skill in itself, is like being a sales manager, and obviously like starting a company. You're thrown in the deep end. You're head of sales, you're team leader, you're head of IT, head of marketing, all these different things that you're learning. And I think we've just been, there's an element of skill, there's also an element of luck. Everything kind of amalgamates together.
Do you think you do enough today? You know, you've obviously had that period where it was that thirst for knowledge and desire to improve. Do you still have that same passion for self-development? Do you still do enough?
I like to think so. Like in the mornings I'm listening to, I can never remember this, but I'm listening to like an Audible book that someone recommended me about sales. I'm very lucky that we have our own podcast, and the people that we bring on are like typically sales leaders or like influencers, not influencers, but like legends in the world of like communication. So like I got to sit down with Chris Voss a couple of weeks ago for an hour.
I thought that was bullshit. Legit. I saw that. This is where you come undone, because you put so much funny stuff on LinkedIn. I saw a picture of you and Chris Voss, and I thought that was just some weird post. That's bullshit. There's no way you sat with Chris Voss
for an hour.
He charges like 10 grand an hour.
Be a cheeky northerner, you'll get it for free.
Right, let's hear that story. What happened?
So I mean, that episode's coming out in a few weeks. By the time this comes out, that episode of us and Chris Voss might come out. But like, it was. We started the podcast with one intention: to get Benjamin Dennehy on the podcast.
You've changed that, because in between the takes I've corrected.
I haven't.
You were calling him.
No, I said Dennehy earlier.
No, you said Dennehy. Rewind it. He's been calling him Benjamin Dennehy, and I said to him off camera, I think it's Dennehy, because he corrected me, and you've just changed it. Anyway,
we love you, Benji.
So that was the aim, to get him.
That was the aim. Right. And within 3 weeks of starting the podcast, I messaged him on my birthday, and he was like, "You know what? Yeah, cool." And we formed a relationship. We've done a lot of events together, and like we meet up for lunch when he's around. And like I really love the guy, and
He seems like he's quite like a mentor type figure to you.
Yeah, definitely. Like, and he's very wise, very smart. He's the GOAT. We call him the GOAT. Like, we're the young bucks, and he's the GOAT. Going off topic now, but we had Chris Voss's son on. Brandon Voss.
On your podcast?
On our podcast.
So how did you get him on?
I'm going to admit it, cold emailed the Black Swan group.
Yeah.
And they came and they put him on. And then we released that episode. Then we...
Whoa. This is important. This is really good. So you identified... Was this all part of the strategy to get Chris?
Not part of the strategy, because it's a hard one, is it? Like, because you might end up there and you might be crucified. So Zach reached out to the people that look after Chris Voss, and they said he's just turned one down, and they offered him 50 grand.
This is what I mean.
I've still got the WhatsApp, and I was just like, all right, we'll never get him. Well, let's get his son on, because his son's like really, really cool as well, and he'll have some stories. Then we got one of the other instructors on, Sandy Hine, who was amazing. And then I reached back out to Sandy after the conversation, and like, I'm getting to sit down with these people for an hour and a half, and like, it's a story about like they're teaching me how to label, how to mirror. Like, so we've had loads and loads of people from that world that are teachers. So I'm learning constantly, and then I'm editing, I'm listening to again, and then I'm going and listening to my own other podcasts and stuff like that. So I'm always, the thirst for knowledge is there. Sandy Hine comes on, reach back out to Sandy, thank you, would you come back? And then she says, why don't you get these three on? And then I have that relationship there with some of the people from the media team. And we emailed him and said, listen, we want to get Chris on. Can we make it happen? And he turned up and went, you've had the whole team. Why am I the last one to be invited? And I was like, you were definitely invited first. But, yeah. And
that is amazing.
But we look at that from like a prospecting angle. Like what we've just done there is like whether that was the intention or not, like, but that was like account-based strategy. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. We've got all the influencers and champions who are fucking amazing in their own right. Like they definitely deserve their own episodes. And then we got the decision maker, and we got to sit with Chris Voss for an hour and have a masterclass, like one-on-one, me, Zach, and him in a room. You don't get that. So
this was your podcast though, but did it turn into a masterclass for the two of you?
Yeah, because it's just, this is like that for us, like the podcast, like conversations, like you get to learn from people, and like we ask the questions that like I'm curious to know, because I think if I'm curious to know it, then hopefully the audience is like, how do you do that? Give me an example of that. What are the low stakes games? Like we've got we've won podcast guests by cold calling them, like out of the blue, like obviously like in the same way. Like, do you know James Sinclair, the entrepreneur?
Name rings a bell.
Party man. He's all over TikTok and stuff like that.
He's on TikTok now.
No, he's this multi-millionaire like entrepreneur, and I just called him. So I'll be honest, I'm calling you to invite you on our podcast. It's a bit of a weird one. It's out of the blue. I don't know if that makes you want to hang up or let me have 30 seconds and run through why I've called you. Yeah, go on then. All right, yeah, lock me in. So I think it's like the skill set that you've got, how can you use that in other areas of your life as well?
I mean, it's actually good. I definitely cannot wait to watch that podcast with Chris Voss. Honestly, I remember when I saw that picture, I was going to message you going, how did you do that? And I was expecting you to go, you idiot, that's a mock-up. Because I just thought there's no way. So that's incredible. What a great story. So we spoke about, obviously, the fact you're a leader now, you're a manager, different skill set. This happens to salespeople a lot. They're successful, they get promoted into a manager role. Appreciate you're not promoted as such, you've taken the job, but you're now a first-time leader, and obviously have been for a number of years. But how are you learning and navigating that world?
I think the same way that it's an interesting one, but it's like leaning on people that you know from, like, I've got friends that like lead companies and manage teams and stuff like that, but also like other like leadership books and leadership podcasts and stuff like that. There's so much like knowledge out there. I think like we're so blessed as humanity now that anything you want, like not everything, like everything's out there for free. Like there are people that will kind of like sell you courses for thousands and thousands of pounds on how to be a better leader, but not everything has to be behind a paywall. Like if you find the right books, the right podcast, the right YouTube videos, like you can find the knowledge. The issue isn't the knowledge, is it? It's like putting it into practice and like having the accountability. Luckily, me, Zach, and Ben, my ops director, we hold ourselves accountable in that sense. So it's like, what are we doing? What are we focusing? What problem are we trying to solve? And we're leaning on each other. So we're all going away, learning like different skill sets, then bringing it back to the table and being like, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z in this situation. What would you do? No, that's right. Proceed with that. No, actually, I'd deal with it like this. And my ops director, he comes from, he ran teams at Vodka Revs, like, and then he moved into like project management. He's got loads of experience managing people. So there's a lot of like on-site learning as well from him.
It sounds like, obviously, that's a really important trio there. I've met Zach and Ben, actually. I remember my last couple of weeks at a Lego, I was like, look, I'll have a chat with you just before I go. What's been the most influential book on you in your career?
It's a really good question. It's a real hard one, because you think like my personal life has obviously had an effect on my career. But if I think about my career now, I think as a seller, Sandler, you can't teach a kid to ride a bike at a seminar. that's one of the game changer. Also, Chris Voss, never split the difference. Like Dale Carnegie, very hard to pick one. But like those books about mindset and communication, they're probably the drivers.
So I've read 2 of those. I haven't read the Sandler one, which is ironic really, because I really like Sandler. So 3 books there. Who would you say has had the biggest influence on you as a seller?
It's probably, I don't know if it's like a political answer or a cheesy answer, but it'd probably have to be Zach. Like from like a standpoint of obviously like being in the trenches every day. Like when the business started, I was in a co-working space, surrounded by strangers, cold calling. And like cold calling is hard at the best of times, but like to do it in a room full of strangers and everybody's got their MacBooks and they're all on Canva making pretty like little graphic designs, and you're the schmuck in the corner cold calling people. Like to be in the trenches and be like going back and forth with each other. I've got this scenario. I've got this is what I'm dealing with today. Like blah, blah, blah. Like, it's like, I think you learn, I think we underestimate like friendship. Like we learn so much from our friends. And I know they say like you become the 5 people that you're surrounded by the most. But I think like we forget like you can learn so much from your friends. Like it doesn't have to necessarily just be somebody that's 30 years ahead of you. It could just be somebody like Zach. Zach's an amazing seller. He'd been doing the business for 6 months, so I was like 6 months behind him. In other skill set, probably not. Like he'd been doing like real hard B2B door opening for years, but in that new environment, like, and he was like 1 step ahead of me and like helping me along the way, and then like working together to solve various different issues. And it's like we both bring different things to the table, and I think that's why it works as a relationship, because one complements the other. We're not bringing necessarily the same skill set.
Have you ever told him that that's how you feel about him?
I'm going to text him after this actually and let him know. No, I love like we're quite as especially for like 2024. I know, like, without sounding all cheesy, but like men don't talk enough, and like I'm quite lucky. My friendship group has always like spoke about how they feel, and I'm very grateful to Zach, and I've definitely told him that before.
Yeah, I love that, and you're right. People don't. In sales can feel like a very lonely place, but being a sales leader or co-founder can also feel like a very lonely place. What's been the most valuable advice you've ever been given from a sales perspective?
Like, I think people expect results from the work they haven't put in. And like, I look back at my time as like an early seller, I thought I could blag it. I really, really thought I could blag it, and I tried to blag it, and you get so far, but eventually the cracks always show. Like, for any seller, like, you've just got to put the work in. And it's not forever. Like, it really, really isn't forever. I remember Benjamin Dennehy saying, like, you're not gonna, you won't be prospecting forever. Like you won't be. Like, when the business started, from 9 till 6 every single day, cold calling on a mobile phone, Google up, one after the other. My week doesn't look like that now, because the business has changed. Like, there wouldn't be enough time to dial. Like, there's a team to manage, there's deals to close, there's clients to work on, there's journeys to Newcastle to do exciting stuff like this. So like, it changes, but it's like, just imagine like a year where you really, really put the effort in. Just 1 year, every single day, without fail, you put the most amount in, you put 100% in, your life's going to change dramatically in 1 year. But those previous years of sales were not even like 50% effort. It was just like chugging along, hoping that somebody was going to come and save me, hoping that somebody was like going to come and pull me out and say, oh, it's all right, we'll give you this big fancy career, you'll be fine. It doesn't happen. Like, you've got to put the work in, and then the rest will follow.
A phrase that I really like, and I feel like you're saying this, but in a much better way, but to summarise, is if you're looking for motivation, it's not going to happen. Action comes first. And then I use this analogy, which doesn't work when you look at me. Fortunately, the camera's up here. But it's like going to the gym. The hardest part is going. but when you're there, you're all right. When you leave, you never regret it, but you need to take that action for that motivation. And it feels like there was a key moment in your career where you decided, I've got to take action. And that's what's led to the motivation.
Yeah, I think at 16, you're allowed to say, "Oh, my life's not fair. Oh, this is happening. This is happening. Blah, it's shit." At 30, get a grip. Like you can't just be sat there, "Oh, I never get the promotions. Oh, nobody ever wants me to be the like it." Even if it's not like your fault, it's your responsibility. And I think like once that mindset like shifted in me, and I realized like, oh shit, life is so short, like no one's coming to save me. I might not have that long. I better do something with this thing.
So I was waiting to ask this question, and I was starting to think we might not get onto it. This obsession with death. Is that just your way of standing out on LinkedIn, or is that a real thing?
Well, people say this like, oh, you built a personal brand about death. It's like, I've not invented death. People know that, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's just coming.
Yeah, it's like it was there before me and it'll be there after me. But I think it's like, I think there's too much like airy fairy hippie shit about like mindset and life. I just think it's like, what's the flip? Everyone's like, when I spent some time in the monastery, like I read loads and loads and loads of books about death, and like I just use it as like a constant reminder. I was telling you earlier, obviously, like my watch says, remember you will die. I've got a necklace on that says, remember you will die. But I just use it as little motivators so that if I come off a call and it's shit, big deal. Like the fridge broke. I got a call the other day from my partner, the fridge is broke. And I just said, all right, well, we'll just get someone out to fix it. And she was frustrated about it. And it's like, it's frustrating, but I'm not going to waste any energy on it because one day I'm going to be on my deathbed. Do you think when I look back at all the traumas in my life, I'm going to be thinking about a fridge that broke? Like, no, like, so it's like, it's not saying don't give a shit about anything, because there are obviously things that are worth like caring about. But I think in the long run, like, and this is why like I'm so passionate about like, do what suits you, like do what makes you happy, what makes you content, follow your dreams, because one day you'll all be dead and like none of it matters. And like really think about like, speaking to my mum about this morning, it's like, so we've got like photos now of like my mum and then her mum, but then you only go back a few generations, you're like, I don't really care who they are. I don't know who they are. I don't have any memories attached to them. It's not long before me and you are going to be long forgotten about. And maybe there'll be a distant memory, like when our names muttered one more time to your great grandkids, or maybe someone's like finds a podcast from you and they're like, oh, this is brilliant. This is how they used to sell in the. Do you know what I mean? Like that'd be amazing. But the chances are, think about how many people have come before us and we've forgotten about and we move on. It's like life is just so bloody short. We're all going to be dead soon. And like people are running around panicking about stuff that just doesn't matter. And I think that's what I'm passionate about. And like, if I can get one other person and have that ripple effect, like It's a Wonderful Life is like that. If you can get one other person to say, fuck, yeah, he's right. Like, what books does he read? Right, I'm going to go and read those. Oh, my mindset's different. Well, then that might have another knock-on effect to someone else in the world. And it's hopefully it's that kind of, you might not be remembered, but your impact might ripple through, and we don't know.
Everything you say there resonates with me, and I have similar thoughts myself. Like, I heard a phrase a long time ago, and it was like, at some point in the future, it'll be the last time you're ever spoken about. And I just thought, wow, you're right. And like you say, obviously, but at some point, you will never be spoken about or thought about ever again. And then you again, just the other example that I play through my mind every November, wear my poppy, and I think, I wonder when that'll stop. And people always go, never. And I'm like, I don't think you appreciate deep time. Like, and I do this exercise with people. I go like, give me a date that's really far in the future. And they go like, oh, 2050. I'm like, yeah, that's my point. You're not thinking in deep time. And I always say, like, World War I, World War II, really important to us. And probably for the rest of our lives, we'll remember it. But there comes a point, there was loads of battles and wars before that we never think about ever. And it's like, it's such an interesting thing I don't remind myself of it enough, but I can see why when you really think about like non-trivial things, and will you think about that in the future? Really, really interesting, and I could spend ages with you on that. And I think, I don't know if it changed for you, but it changed me when I become a parent. No one likes the idea of death, and it freaks them out. But having children changed my perception of death. I felt more comfortable with it, which is mad because I want to be here longer than ever because I've got 2 kids now. But did that change you at all, having a child?
It's one of the happiest things. Like, we were talking about this last week, but like, it's amazing. Like, having children is like the best thing ever. I absolutely love it. With that comes a deep sadness. When you say hello to somebody, eventually you'll have to say goodbye. And fingers crossed, in my lifetime, it's me. Like, obviously, that there are awful things that happen. The Stoics used to meditate, and they used to go into the child's room. This is like how crazy they were thousands of years ago. But they'd like sit there over the baby, and they'd meditate on if the baby didn't make it to the morning, which is crazy. But like, it makes sense just to make the most of that moment. Hopefully, like, it's me that goes first, and I live to 90, and I get to see great grandkids. Like, it'd be incredible. But like, one day I'll have to say goodbye, and that is hard, and that comes, like, that is grief, isn't it? Like, it's like you love people and you get to experience the good things, and then with that comes the sadness. But that is just life. It's black and white. There are kind of no areas of it's not black and white. Sorry. Anyway, you know what I'm trying to say.
What are you trying to say?
But yeah, it's amazing, but it's also hard. But it does, like, it's the complete opposite of death.
Yeah. So, speaking of saying goodbye, we're getting towards the end of our podcast. Tell us more about WHAM, the problems you solve, and why people should. We know why we should listen out for the podcast. Got Chris Voss coming on, but give WHAM a little plug to those listening that might not have heard of WHAM before.
Yeah, so we got 2 now. So you mentioned it earlier, like a sales consultancy,
yes,
and WHAM. So like, WHAM is, we have a meeting, and it does what it says on the tin. Like, we get you meetings. Like, we focus on top of the funnel. Like, so many people want to be sitting down with people that like fit their ICP and they're like their dream clients, but they don't have the capacity, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the systems, they don't have the team, they don't have the grind or the hustle to actually sit down and just say, you know what, I'm going to put in a full shift. I'm just going to ring people. I'm going to have conversations. I'm going to build that awareness. I'm going to find people that have the problems, see if they're motivated, and then I'm going to book it in the diary. We do that for you. We become an extension of your team. We just book those meetings in for you. So we work with a variety of different clients on that side. As we grew, we have a meeting. We found that there's capacity for, okay, what happens next? So we were sitting with people that say, well, I sit with them, but my conversion rate's probably not as high as I want it to be. So maybe that's from like a training standpoint, or like more consultancy. Like, these are your blind spots. This is like, you've not got sales, you've not got any CRM system in place. Of course, that's why you've, like, these are the areas. Like, it's easy. Like we were speaking about earlier, the stuff that we know now, we know, but there are people that are in business that don't necessarily know the stuff that we know now. So it's like, how do we implement that, and how do we make change for that? So yeah, they're the 2 businesses that we do.
And people can find you on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn, talking about death.
And it sounds like you might be on TikTok.
I think we are on TikTok, yeah. We do the odd TikTok. We're trying to get more TikTok. I'm trying to be down with it this year.
So you don't have a personal TikTok?
I do, but that's my scrolling hand.
Understood.
You know what I mean? We do have a YouTube channel.
Does the TaylorMade have a TikTok?
The TaylorMade, no, they were long gone before TikTok existed, unfortunately.
Fair enough. Jack, I've loved having you on the podcast. You've been so transparent, so open. We've definitely, I feel like, gone through a roller coaster. We've had like some funny moments, we've had some difficult moments, got really deep there, talking about death. Like, it's definitely been a great interview as far as I'm concerned. I've really enjoyed listening to you. I'm grateful for you travelling up from Manchester. What an incredible effort. And can't wait to hear the podcast with Chris Voss. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.